Hello, welcome to another episode of The Way I See It. I hope that you like these messages and I ask you to subscribe right down here below. Subscribe to my channel and click like on these videos and share them with others. And please leave me comments. I will respond to your comments. If you follow me on social media, I'll respond to anything you have to say. Today I'm going to talk about politics, I guess. This is not religious in nature, but with these events that have happened recently, with these murders and racism definitely being at play in maybe all three of them for sure, Ahmaud and Breonna, and then everyone saying, some folks are saying that George Floyd, it was not motivated by race, that it was just this guy, this police officer was just abusing his power, and he could have been kneeling on the neck of a white man and it wouldn't have mattered. But the point is, it was brutal, and race was definitely at play, and we know that racism still exists in our country. And for sure in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, we know that was racist. Like, literally, that was like Deliverance style crazy stuff right there. But I want to talk about Black people becoming conservatives, being more conservative than their voting record tends to show. Whether you believe that all the problems we have in America are part of systemic racism or not, that's not really the issue. I'm not trying to convince anyone that it is systemic racism or that it's not systemic racism. You can listen to people who know more than I do deliver facts and numbers and data on that, and those people can be white or Black. I've heard Black conservatives say there's no such thing as systemic racism, there's just racism, and because really all the systems are actually helping the Black people, things like affirmative action, or things like, or if you look at the numbers of interactions with police officers that result in a fatality, they're higher for white people than for Black people. I don't think that dismisses systemic racism. I'm just saying there's other people that can share their thoughts on that who've done a lot of research about that. And I've listened to both sides of these arguments, so that's not really what I'm prepared to talk about. But I do want to point out that a lot of the places where the poverty among minorities or people of color, they may not technically be minorities in certain places if you look at like population numbers, they might be, but they're considered minorities in that they have a harder life. They have a higher poverty level, a higher unemployment rate. They're more likely to be affected by violent crime. These people, and they're mostly people of color. The places where these things take place, where these rates are higher, are in Democratic-run places. And they've been democratically led in the case of the Atlanta mayor, we've only had Democratic mayors in Atlanta since 1879. 1879. Democrat. That's 141 years. So I just wanted to throw out a few numbers, and I really want to just ask, I kind of just want to float the idea, and I'm not the first person to do it. There's Black conservatives out there already doing this, trying to recruit, more African Americans to, I say Black, and I know some people get offended and they want to say African American, but then other African Americans will say, or Black people will say, well, we're not all African American. There's different kinds of people that make up the Black population, so say Black. And then there's other people of color who are not Black or African American. They're Hispanic, or there's just other factors in there, and there's all kinds of things. So maybe I should say people of color. But I just wanted to point out some things, and I wanted to just talk about what the options are, I guess. Some of this is not news to anybody, and some of you've heard it all before, and you can dismiss all the arguments. You can say, well, that's because of this, and that's because of this, and really that helped. The problem is really still white racism. But some of you may not have heard it, so I'm going to say things. I'm going to say some things I've researched and read about and written down. Things I've heard for a couple of years now that I finally decided to take down. In the mid-1960s, we saw Lyndon B. Johnson introduce a lot of measures called the Great Society. And these were meant to improve the lives of poor people, minorities, uneducated people, to try to help improve their situation in life. Unfortunately, one of the unforeseen successes of this was the great dissolution of the black family. In the mid-1960s, leading up to 1964, 1965, 2 to 3 black children out of every 10 were born out of wedlock. So in most cases, black children were born in a 2-parent married household. Since then, now, over 70% of black children are born out of wedlock. And we know for a fact that when you live in a household where 2 parents are married, they're working, they're raising this family together, that's immediately going to boost your chances of succeeding in education, your chances of, going along with succeeding in education, graduating from high school, getting a good job, your chances of also pursuing your professional career and then waiting to get married and have children as well. It's just a layer of stability that children need. So that happened, 1960s, Great Society, Democrat. 1973, Roe v. Wade was approved, and we know that ever since abortion became legal, the number one race of aborted babies is black babies. There's so many black children that aren't in society, black adults that aren't in society today to earn their way through the world because their mom felt like she couldn't afford to raise them. This happened within less than a decade of the Great Society measures being passed, where the black family started to dissolve, and then you have a bunch of single women getting pregnant, can't afford to keep this baby, got to do what I got to do to feed the children I already have, so I'm going to get an abortion. The number of abortions would just be minuscule. Even if you say I support abortion, but I only want it to be safe, legal, and rare. These measures push that. I mean, if you had women who were having children within a stable, married relationship household, the number of abortions would just bottom out. It's never going to go away, but it would significantly drop for any race. So 1994, so right after we're about 30 years now past the Great Society measures, and a bunch of children have come up, been born out of wedlock, and then the Democrats passed a violent crime bill written by Joe Biden, 1994, which starts putting all these young black men into prison for extended periods of time. So now we've got more babies being born into fatherlessness because their daddies are off in prison. I just feel like these policies have been passed by Democrats, and they say they're going to help. They're going to help the poor. They're going to help the disenfranchised. But they don't. They end up harming them. So when we look at the top 10 most dangerous cities, according to Forbes magazine last year, all of them have Democratic mayors. I already mentioned Atlanta has had a Democratic mayor since 1879, even though the Democratic Party in the South has shifted from being a lot of white racists to having a lot of people of color in it. But they've just had a grip on Atlanta, at least, and it's been exclusively Democrat-led when you look at city council members and other things like that since about the late 60s and early 70s. All of these cities that have Democratic leadership also have poverty rates between 18 and 39%, whereas the national average is around 12%, probably going up right now because of coronavirus and people's businesses getting destroyed. These cities lead the nation in murder, manslaughter, robbery, and aggravated assault. Chicago has been a de facto monolithic entity of the Democratic Party from the mid-20th century onward. Detroit has been 100% Democratic run for over 30 years. St. Louis has been electing Democratic mayors since 1949. not having to do with race. One of the reasons people want more of the democratic policies in a city, I understand that libertarian policies might not really fly, because in a city where people aren't driving their cars, they need public transportation. That's a social construct that a lot of times, like, a libertarian is going to be like, we don't need to have government money funding this, funding this, funding this, but in a city, you do. Or in a city, you want to have policies in place to protect against air pollution and stuff like that. A lot of good that's doing in LA, but the policies are there. And a lot of times people who are really into just independent freedom, libertarians, they're not going to support that kind of thing. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense in terms of certain policies to not have some sort of person in power who supports the social safety net structure that is needed in a city. And another problem may be that Republicans haven't done a good enough job until they're kind of trying now to start appealing to people of color and saying, look, we want to help you. Come vote for us. But if you are a person of color and you feel like, I don't really agree with a lot of things in the Democratic platform, and things that Joe Biden have said have just really offended me, but you think the idea of voting Republican is just like this ludicrous notion, like, why on earth would I do that? Nobody I know does that. Let's just consider a few things. First of all, there are plenty of conservatives, people of color, for you to go online and read from and look at and learn from regarding why they are conservatives, why they will usually vote Republican, and in some cases be Republicans in office. I mean, you got one of the most famous, the token black guy, Senator, Tim Scott, I think it's Tim Scott, in South Carolina, but he's not the only one. There's lots of black Republicans all over the place. And then there's also, but you might say, well, I don't really want to leave the Democratic Party, but although I don't agree with how far left it's gone, I feel like we need to stay in the Democratic Party and reform it from the inside. And there are some who are like that. I mean, you've got like Katrina Jackson in Louisiana. She is a pro-life Democrat. Then you've got Karen Whitsitt in Michigan, who's a Democrat, but I don't know if she's going to stay Democrat. I guess she is, unless she just gets hated out of the party. But she supports Trump for president this year, so that's already made her a pariah among a lot of other Democrats. Vernon Jones here in Georgia, also heavily mistreated by his own party because he supports Trump re-election because of measures that Trump has passed, which has benefited minorities and people of color like himself. I don't know if he's going to stay a Democrat or if he's going to change to be a Republican. I do know he supports Trump, but that's a singular incident. So there may be people that you feel like, I want to follow these people. I want to stay a Democrat, but I want to reform the Democratic Party and pull it back to some level of sanity. But if you are losing hope in the Democratic Party because all the things they've tried to do, as I pointed out, for the last 50 or 60 years, supposedly to help the people who are most in need, have not been succeeding. And also, so much of their platform has moved so far left that it may offend your sensibilities if you actually have more of a conservative religious, belief. I heard a black commentator say, if people of color, black people specifically, represent, I don't know what it was, 13% of the American population, maybe more, why wouldn't you want to have a stake in both of the major parties? I'd even welcome you to come to the Libertarian Party. They have now, I follow them on social media. I'm a registered Libertarian, and I see where they're trying to now reach out and pull in more than just white people. Why wouldn't you want to have a stake in any party, in every party? Why not be that person? Why not become a Republican, run for office, do these things and promote awareness of issues that the black community faces, shine a light on it and say, look, I'm a conservative. I'm going to join the Republican Party, but we need to help my community. Let's talk about how to do that. So I just want to say, consider making the leap, having a part in something other than one monolithic party. There's no reason why such a huge percentage of the black population should identify as a Democrat when that's not really helping them. It's not really helping their life, their people, race relations in America. That's not really helping. We need to have black representation across the spectrum politically, across the spectrum, so that we can all talk to each other and learn from each other without feeling like it's all political. The way to get it away from just being political is to go across the political spectrum. So that it doesn't become a Democrat-Republican thing. It doesn't become a progressive-conservative thing. Race relations is just a human thing. And we need to hear voices in every corner of the I was going to say political sphere, but a sphere doesn't have corners. Every corner of the political cube. Thank you so much for listening and watching today, and I hope you have a blessed day.